First story. For the last month and a half I've been fighting demons. Me 31-year-old male recently found out my wife 28 has been having an affair. I don't know if anyone is interested, but this is a portion of my journal. I've been keeping to track my progress, thoughts on it. More to come if it gains interest. Apologies in advance for my writing format. As I lay here in bed with you while you're sound asleep, I cannot but think about you and him together. I know I've been cold to you, and that you have noticed, which in turn makes me feel worse, but I used to be happy. We used to be happy together. Now every time I look at you I envision you and him. It makes me sick to my stomach. But as I lay here and you try to cuddle, I can't help but to pull away from your touch, your tainted touch. You've let his hands and eyes explore your body that was meant for me, your husband, and you gave it away to him. You act like nothing happened while I continue to bottle my feelings to avoid confrontation. I'm trying to stay medicated enough to forget about everything and to find peace, yet it's all I can think about. I've stopped trying to stay medicated to have some sense of clarity, to have a better understanding of what's going on, where we stand. This lasted almost a whole day. I haven't noticed how much smoking takes the edge off. Last week you took a pregnancy test because there were thoughts that you could have his child. I don't think you realize the impact that this has had on our relationship. It's starting to feel like there's not anything left to save. Today was better, but as I'm winding down with the kids and helping clean up, I've came across the birthday card I got you last September, the same night you started talking to him. Update. It's been 2 months since I've found out about. Since then I've quit my demanding job to spend more time at home and try to rebuild what we had. I'm still heavily medicated. I've also broken my hand punching through the TV mounted on the wall during our fights. A lot has happened in the past few months. I took you to NYC for the first time. The trip was supposed to make or break us, but somehow I feel just as confused as before we left. We've discussed, or rather tried to discuss, what happened. You create the illusion that you're putting everything out on the table. And yet I know you're withholding 10 to 5% of what really is going to hurt me. But I would rather know the whole truth, and not let my mind wander. You don't get into specifics and generalize events. It seems like every other day I'm finding out something new to relight the flame. I even found out that when you left and was trying to work on our marriage, sexting me trying to be cute, that immediately afterwards you went right over to his house. The only thing keeping me here is Ashton. This past year with him has been eye-opening on what's important. It's hard to believe that he would be a year old on the 11th. When you came back home you noticed I took off my wedding ring. It hurt to hear you say, "At least I never took my wedding ring off." That's good to know that you didn't even think twice about our home and family, and how your infidelity would impact our children's lives. You choose to cheat, threw away our marriage when you let him touch you. When you touched him, how can you say you love our children or me, your husband? This is not who I am. I'm not an angry person, but right now I'm hurt and feel betrayed. You say you love me and I respond, "Do you?" And you hate it. I've spent 4 hours in a Planned Parenthood parking lot waiting for you to get tested for sexually transmitted diseases and to see if you're pregnant. You say you love me, but I feel as if the damage done is irreparable. I don't know if I have any love left for you, Christian. Update. This will probably be a lifetime journey. After multiple premenstrual syndrome claiming this is just for show, or that I'm not really living this, I'm going offline. I've tried to sit down with my wife to discuss actions going forward and explain how I feel and suggested therapy, but it was a total shit show. Not because I took advice from strangers, but because she's denying everything now. I know the truth, might not know every detail, but I know enough to draw conclusions. I don't know if it was the right thing to do or not, but I have nothing left to give. I've done everything in my power, but I can't do it alone. She's not ready and I'm not giving in. I gave her 48 hours to make accommodations. Update. Due to multiple requests is chosen to add context and additional detail from my other posts to provide answers. Me 31-year-old male recently found out my wife 28 has been having an affair. I don't know if anyone is interested, but this is a portion of my journal. I've been keeping to track my progress, thoughts on it. More to come if it gains interest. Apologies in advance for my writing format. As I lay here in bed with you while you're sound asleep, I cannot but think about you and him together. I know I've been cold to you, and that you have noticed, which in turn makes me feel worse, but I used to be happy. We used to be happy together. Now every time I look at you I envision you and him. It makes me sick to my stomach. But as I lay here and you try to cuddle, I can't help but to pull away from your touch, your tainted touch. You've let his hands and eyes explore your body that was meant for me, your husband, and you gave it away to him. You act like nothing happened while I continue to bottle my feelings to avoid confrontation. I'm trying to stay medicated enough to forget about everything and to find peace, yet it's all I can think about. I've stopped trying to stay medicated to have some sense of clarity, to have a better understanding of what's going on, where we stand. This lasted almost a whole day. I haven't noticed how much smoking takes the edge off. Last week you took a pregnancy test because there were thoughts that you could have his child. I don't think you realize the impact that this has had on our relationship. It's starting to feel like there's not anything left to save. Today was better, but as I'm winding down with the kids and helping clean up, I've came across the birthday card I got you last September, the same night you started talking to him. Update: it's been 2 months since I've found out about it. Since then I've quit my demanding job to spend more time at home and try to rebuild what we had. I'm still heavily medicated. I've also broken my hand punching through the TV mounted on the wall during our fights. A lot has happened in the past few months. I took you to NYC for the first time. The trip was supposed to make or break us, but somehow I feel just as confused as before we left. We've discussed, or rather tried to discuss, what happened. You create the illusion that you're putting everything out on the table. And yet I know you're withholding 10 to 5% of what really is going to hurt me. But I would rather know the whole truth, and not let my mind wander. You don't get into specifics and generalize events. It seems like every other day I'm finding out something new to relight the flame. I even found out that when you left and was trying to work on our marriage, sexting me trying to be cute, that immediately afterwards you went right over to his house. The only thing keeping me here is Ashton. This past year with him has been eye-opening on what's important. It's hard to believe that he would be a year old on the 11th. When you came back home you noticed I took off my wedding ring. It hurt to hear you say, "At least I never took my wedding ring off." That's good to know that you didn't even think twice about our home and family, and how your infidelity would impact our children's lives. You choose to cheat, threw away our marriage when you let him touch you. When you touched him, how can you say you love our children or me, your husband? This is not who I am. I'm not an angry person, but right now I'm hurt and feel betrayed. You say you love me and I respond, "Do you?" And you hate it. I've spent 4 hours in a Planned Parenthood parking lot waiting for you to get tested for sexually transmitted diseases and to see if you're pregnant. You say you love me, but I feel as if the damage done is irreparable. I don't know if I have any love left for you, Christian. High school sweetheart cheated in my emotional wreck. Last September I found out that my wife of 5 years has been having an affair. I don't even know if affair is the right word, to be honest. I was told she needed some space and she just left while I was at work. She went 2 hours away for over a week with him with our children. Since then we've been trying to rebuild our relationship, but I feel so disconnected from my wife. Some days are okay, some days aren't. I keep stumbling into things that are either a reminder of what's happened or new information comes up from others who are aware of what was going on. I know I must sound like a fool, but I need to know I have done everything to make it work. Update: 7 months later. This is for anyone who has nothing to lose, anyone who feels lost and betrayed. I chose to reconcile and I'm so glad I did. My wife has since had no contact with the other AP and has been transparent each time he's reached out. It's been a good 3-4 times. It hasn't been easy though. I cannot tell you how many days I felt angry, jealous and confused. Throughout all this I've questioned myself when I should have let things I couldn't have controlled alone. There's been so many fights, I've said so many hurtful things in anger. Throughout this whole process I felt as if I was a shitty husband, but then I started seeing something shift between us. I don't know if it's because I've been focusing on my well-being by going to the gym consistently, getting up earlier and just being a part of the household again. There is an air of normalcy lingering that's comforting. I still self-medicated, mostly smoke, but it's not to sedate or suppress as much as it's something we can do to enjoy together. I feel there is an openness to our marriage now that allows us to have these tough conversations when needed and feel heard. I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but always trust your gut. Even when Redditors are telling you to leave, you know yourself and your situation the best. There's not a one-size-fits-all response or advice for what you're experiencing, but maybe this can give you hope. What has worked works for me might not for you, but if he or she is important enough to you, maybe you'll try and hopefully you will succeed. Update. On my story 7/22. It's been months since my last update. Here's where we're currently at for those looking to reconcile. Every 2 to 3 days it's a huge fight over little things. There's so much animosity between us and no real communication. For example, on my day off Saturday morning my wife DoorDashes Instacarts. She caught an order a mile away, said she was going to do it real quick and be back in a few minutes. Few hours later, I called her to see if everything is okay because we have had issues with our vehicle. And I was genuinely concerned that she hasn't been back, or that I haven't heard from her. I had previously told her I didn't have much going on and intended to just hang out with her for the day, rather it's in the car dashing or whatever she had going on. Thought it would be a small but welcome gesture. Something I've been trying to put more effort into lately, but it, like most things I do, backfired. She answers the phone. I ask if everything is okay because she said she would be right back. I get a what? I can't hear you. I repeated myself, and once she got home escalated to I told you I was working today. I don't need to respond immediately to you. You're tracking my location. You never want to go with me. Mind you, I do work full-time and have been picking up additional shifts when possible to try to get us out of this financial situation we're in, so I value my days off and would rather spend them doing something with our children or together. It's been almost a year since I've found out. I've tried to subtly make sexual comments through the day while I'm at work, something I know they did quite a bit of, and all I get is some dry-ass messages back, if any at all. I feel just as lost now as I did then. Someone tell me I'm not crazy, and that this is not okay way to communicate when trying to reconcile. I have tried to sit down and have a one-on-one with her and explain how I'm feeling, but I've hit a wall. I feel like I've explained myself and emotions multiple times, but there's no point in communicating with someone who is not open to listening to understand, so we can work through these tough times. All I want is to feel compassion and loved. We hardly talk most days at Siri. Second story. Caught wife cheating and was wondering thoughts? This will be a long story, so sorry. I'll try and keep it as brief as it can be. We've been together for over 21 years now and been married for 17 years. We have 3 kids together. I've always trusted my wife, and I've been confident that when she was getting together with guy friends or co-workers, that nothing was going on. She had started going out after work randomly with an ex-boss, male, who would drive an hour from his place of work to meet her at her place of work or nearby. I was told that they would go for a run and then dinner drinks. Mind you, this was probably taking place around 2016-ish. This didn't bother me at all as I trusted her. One day, however, I got an anonymous message on Facebook, created from a fake account that basically was stating that they've seen my wife with another guy several times and didn't know how to approach me about it, but wanted to alert me to it. They made mention about seeing them on trails and at a restaurant and made comments about how they had thought about going to my sister. I somehow convinced myself that this message was a fake and from a bot per se. Soon after I did talk with my wife about how this guy must have other motives if he's driving an hour after work to run 4 miles with her and avoiding going home to be with his own wife and kids, which were still an hour from where they were running. My wife told me that she squashed this connection after our conversation. Fast forward to 2020. My wife was with a different ex-boss, again, male. When she comes home she tells me about this night and how he was connecting with a different girl at the bar, and ended up doing some things with this girl at the end of the night and sending some pics to my wife. Her telling me this got me to start looking at her messages whenever she would be away from her phone. She had always told me that she deleted old text messages, which is another red flag, so the messages that I would look at would always be a bit fragmented. Anyways, this guy would send my wife pics and videos of him having sex with other girls. So this kept me on high alert and constantly wanting to look at her messages. One morning during winter of 2021 we were away on a family vacation. I found myself glancing at my wife's phone while she was away from it. I caught a texting conversation between her and a female friend that spoke of a guy that my wife was seeing. The feeling that came over me was unexplainable. I had convinced myself that nothing was going on with things in the past, but now reality was setting in. As I continued to catch fragments of conversations, I learned that my wife was going out with this girlfriend, and they would then meet up with some guys later in the night. To make matters worse, the guy that my wife was connecting with was a friend of hers in town. I start to see that her and this guy are using other apps to communicate, so I try and monitor those conversations, but she is fairly quick to delete these messages. I would even see her texting him while laying next to me in bed, while she probably thought I was sleeping. I would see their good morning messages as well. It became a lot. To make matters worse, we were getting work done in our house, and I came to find out that my wife also had conversations in these other apps with a contractor, as she either was or was trying to get together with him. Well, all of this is going on, and again I'm catching fragments of conversations due to the deleting that's going on. I also caught a text from what was her current boss then, and he makes mention of hooking up together. The more I write this out, the more I'm feeling extremely stupid and like a chump. Anyways, with all of this going on, I reach out to the guy in town's wife via text, as I wanted to get her on my side and make her aware. This backfired on me, as she thought that my text to her was a fake and showed her husband. He then reached out to my wife, who then came driving home crying to me. We then discussed some of what I mention here. I told her to break things off with these guys, and she has told me that she did. During the few months of me trying to find out what was going on while watching her texts when I could, I went from being a very confident and happy male to being someone who can't get this stuff out of his head and can't even explain the way I feel about all of this. My wife and I have had a couple of conversations over the past couple of years since this has all transpired to help with what goes on in my head, but it is still very tough on me. It is 2023 and 2 years since this all came to a head. I never thought to reach out to this community beforehand, but am wondering what people might tell me. What advice would you give to me in trying to work through this and save our family? Thank you all. Update. Reading recommendations and tools for someone who has been cheated on? As the title suggests, I'm wondering if people would kindly post their advice on reading materials and tools for coping with having been cheated on. I know I've seen recommendations for the book Leave a Cheater, Gain a Life. I intend to read this very soon, but I'm wondering what else is out there that may have worked for some of you. Thanks in advance. Update. Has anyone here tried the Affair Recovery M's online course? Wondering if it's worth it. As the title says, I'm wondering what people's thoughts are. My wife cheated on me. I caught her over 3 years ago and we've been working on reconciling since then. There's good days and bad, good weeks and bad. It's not easy on my mental state. I've been struggling for a long time over this. There was multiple days getting the information out over the past few years, and it's hurt always learning more over this time frame. Anyways, she is willing to put in the work and has been trying some. I've been following a lot of affair recovery type of videos on YouTube as well as videos to help with my trauma. Anyways, I'm wondering if the Affair Recovery M's online course will help us reconcile. What do people here think about this? Has anyone gone through it and been happy with it? I'm not a religious person and I do know that they incorporate that some. Thanks for the help. Update. Confused and struggling after over 3 years since D-Day. Looking for advice on anyone who has had this experience unfortunately. I'm a father of 3. I caught my wife cheating on me over 3 years ago. She had basically had an affair for 3 years, one of which was physical. There's some other infidelity in there as well, but I won't even get into that here. Due to her trickle-truthing me over 2 years that it was just all texting, I decided to stay and try and make it work. But I knew that there had to be more due to the evidence that I had, and she eventually came somewhat clean after 2.5 years that it was physical as well. This has crushed me mentally for the past 3 years, but I've been trying to make it work. We have good days and bad days, but she is trying to help us for the most part. We carry on like any other normal couple that you'd look at from the outside. Again, things are good at times between us, but then I also go through rough patches every 2-3 weeks where I am pretty mentally unstable but able to keep things together in front of the family. I do see a therapist, but I don't feel like this has been doing much for me. I do see one who specializes in PTSD as well. Anyways, this is my backstory to my question for you all. At what point do you start to look at separation or divorce to see if that's what I really need in order to be healthier mentally? I'm trying to do what's best for my family here. If anyone has gone through what I am going through and had these thoughts, I'd be very curious to know how you came out on the other side of things, or what you did to succeed in staying in your relationship. Thanks in advance. Update. Rambling on here and would like your thoughts. I am over 3 years out from discovering my wife's cheating. She had an affair which was physical for over 1.5 years, and there was another 1.5 years worth of texting which lead up to that. There was also other messaging and flirting going on with a few other guys over this time period. We have 3 kids together. When I discovered her cheating, I took 2-3 months to do some of my own discovery into what exactly was going on. Through this I discovered more of what she was up to. Once confronted, we spoke about things, and I somehow let her convince me that her cheating was only through texting. I knew that had to be more but couldn't prove it. 2 years would go by. I wouldn't say we were trying to reconcile at all during this period. I would say that we were just foolishly trying to play parents and also do our best to look like a couple. Eventually she would see the damage that was done to me as I was no longer myself. What once was an always glass half full kind of guy, appreciating how great the world was to me, and all I have now been turned into someone who I don't even know. Anyways, through her recognizing this and knowing that we needed to do something, we finally talked again, and she admitted to me the physical part and what they had really done together. This of course stung hard, and even though I knew that there had to be physical stuff going on between them, actually hearing it hit me harder than I could have. Tough. This sent me into real PTSD mode in this past year. Since then I have discovered Reddit forums and YouTube channels worth following and have been seeing a therapist, but I feel that ultimately I don't really feel any better. I might also add that since then, in this past year, my WW has been doing a fair amount of stuff right to help me heal. Anyways, I'm just looking for people's thoughts who are here that have stayed together with their WP. I have so many ups and downs, good weeks and bad weeks. An example would be this past weekend. We were away and had a pretty good weekend together as a family. However, on our 6-hour drive home, when the car is quiet for a good bit, I found myself slipping into a depressed mode of feeling bad for myself as to why this all happened, and how could she do this to me, us, and all of that. Just a solid 2 to 3 hours of driving and feeling like this. It's not at all a healthy way to live, and I'm wondering how you all deal with this type of thing. My therapist has given me breathing and muscle relaxing techniques to deal with these moments, but I can't really say they do much in the long run. I guess I have a lot of questions here, and I'm ultimately looking for a magic wand to make it all go away. Who has stayed together and it's actually worked? Like you as the betrayed spouse, are you actually happy with your WP now, and do you not have moments like I'm mentioning here? Out of now where I will be out somewhere with my wife, and I will just look at here and thoughts will come over me thinking, how could you do this, and I don't even feel like I know you anymore. I know I'm just rambling on here, but what are your techniques to keep your mind healthy, and do you really feel like a couple can be happy together after such damage has been done? I have times where I think I love her again, but then a week later I could be having feelings like, am I just going through the motions to keep things normal for our kids? Thanks for your input and help.